There is a Solution for That is sponsored by VARC Solutions. VARC Solutions helps small businesses succeed by delivering expert QuickBooks bookkeeping, consulting, quick-base development, and integrated solutions. If you own a small to medium-sized business that uses QuickBooks or QuickBase, the experts at VARC Solutions can help. In business since 1999, with people who care and the knowledge and experience to solve your toughest problems. Visit varcsolutions.com for all your QuickBooks needs. Welcome back to another edition of There's a Solution for That, where we help small businesses succeed by discussing challenging business problems and best-in-class solutions. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of There's a Solution for That. We have Theresa Chilcoat with us today, and she's one of our frequent guests, and we're going to be talking today about delegating and setting expectations, which, quite frankly, is a problem, and people don't always do it well or don't know how to do it well. And so that's the problem we're trying to solve today with Theresa. So Theresa, tell our audience a little bit about you.
Great. Thank you, Brad. Thanks for having me back on. My name is Theresa Chilcoat. I've been in human resources for over 15 years with an emphasis in employee relations and leadership training. The last 6 years of my career have been in the healthcare industry and working with coaching managers, executives, and physician leadership. My last role was a Texas Oncology. I managed over 1,500 employees. I have 3 direct reports across the state of Texas. So I understand the challenges that a lot of managers face. In the light of my experiences, I have written a book, which I'll be publishing this year, called The Survival Guide to a Toxic Workplace.
Fantastic. Well, glad to have you on the show. So the topic today is delegating. So, when I think of delegating, I think of, okay, so I have a job, I have a role that I'm playing, and it just keeps expanding, right? There's more and more stuff getting added. I get to that point at some point where I just can't do any more other than just work more hours. And so when we talk about delegating, from your perspective and from your experience working with leaders, people who are taking on more responsibility, when is the right time to start getting better at this whole concept of delegating?
That is one of the biggest challenges that managers face because you don't think about how much you take on until you're overwhelmed. And then managers or leaders don't know how to even manage it when it becomes overwhelming. So it's understanding what is something that's a priority versus which is something that can be planned, what can be something that you don't need to do whatsoever. And then if you have a team, understanding what could be delegated to somebody else. So I don't know if you've ever heard about the Eisenhower matrix. It's the 4 quadrants, the urgent. Yeah, so it's a fascinating way of looking at workload, tasks, and how to delegate. So there's 4 parts. So it's urgent and important, which would be something you would do immediately. So that would be something as a manager you would take on yourself. If it's urgent but not important, that could be something that could be delegated. And then you have not important but urgent. That's another item that could be delegated or planned in the future. And then you have not important and not urgent. Do I really need to do this whatsoever? So if you put those to your task and understand first and foremost what is really important, and then your time management is, what do I focus my energies, understanding what my strengths are, what my willpower is at the highest, what should I be tackling throughout the day, and scheduling according to how well you need, how much time you need to think, how much strategic, that executive functioning of the brain. Is it in the morning? Are you more effective in the afternoon? And just planning your day accordingly.
So do you think this is something that leaders should be focusing on after they've gotten overwhelmed, or is this a little bit more proactive?
Definitely proactive, because this is something that once you become overwhelmed, is that you're going to be stressed out. You're not going to be in the mindset to be thinking about how do I plan my day. You're literally just trying to put up fires. You're not focusing on what you can do to effectively, what is my best use of my time right now? What's the best time of my use in the later in the afternoon? A lot of times people are distracted by emails, phone calls. You know, instead of blocking time and making sure that you're using your time wisely, we allow ourselves to be distracted by the phone or an email or a coworker. It's understanding and managing and being very diligent with your time. And that goes with delegating too, is recognizing I can't do this. I have to trust somebody else to do it and get it off your plate.
Well, it's an interesting, I mean, the topic is so big and it's so important.
Yeah.
When I think of how a company or a leader or leadership team can grow a business, one of the philosophies I've always had is to try to put myself out of a job. Okay.
Yes.
Because if I'm the only one that can do something, that's a problem. Okay. The
Exactly.
whole, if I get hit by a bus, is sort of concept. So I'm always looking to say, who else could be doing this and what do they need to do it effectively? But so that kind of leads to that next question, though, is there a right way to delegate? Is there a wrong way to delegate? Do you have any kind of intel on that?
Well, the wrong way is if you're just dumping something off that you should be doing, but you're giving it to somebody that maybe is not qualified, or it's too important or critical that this person, you're basically setting them up for failure. So
Mm,
understanding what you're delegating is something that the person can do and has the time and the ability, because you don't want to set up somebody up for failure. The idea is when you delegate is that you're creating more experience and opportunity for somebody to build them up, to grow them into somebody that will be a valuable asset to your team. And like you mentioned, that you're going to be out of a job. The more that they understand and appreciate that you're giving them more responsibility and delegate, the more you can take off your plate and then be able to focus on more strategic or more proactive activities than just being reactionary. And another good thing about delegation is it helps and keep your employees engaged and productive. If you are micromanaging them or only giving them a little bit of information, they're going to get bored. They're going to feel like you don't trust them, and there's no way they're going to stay. They will leave, and then you're right back to where you were, that you're taking on all the responsibility. So it's having trust in your team, recognizing what they can take on, what you should be taking on, and being very diligent about following up with them and making sure that they have clear understanding of what the expectations are.
well, let's unpack that a little bit because I know that there was a lot there, right? Which is,
Yes.
um, you mentioned dumping, right? So
Yeah,
this delegation is not just, hey, I've got a task that I don't have time for. Let me just dump it over here
exactly.
or give it to
Mhm.
somebody else. So, to do it right, it sounds like you need to invest the time. And so how much time does a leader really need to invest in delegating well?
It depends on the amount of responsibilities they have and how often those responsibilities change. So there might be delegation that somebody, like on a weekly basis, this person is responsible for these reports, or maybe they're ad hoc responsibilities. So it's planning out what is something that can be done consistently by delegation, or is this something that's a one-time that somebody is going to be managing? So it's looking at your overall workload and kind of creating a historical picture of what's been on my plate, what have I been responsible for, and what I can delegate. So it goes back to that proactive planning your day, is taking the time. And ideally it would be before the week starts, like maybe Sunday or Saturday, to kind of get an idea of what your responsibilities are. Yes, it's not fun to have to think about work on the weekends, but you're setting yourself up for success. Is that little bit of time that you spend is more time saved in the long run throughout the week, because you know what's going to be needed to delegate and what you're going to have to take on.
I like it. I like it. Here's kind of a related question. So there's at least from my experience, there's a little bit of a nuance here when it comes to delegating, right? Because like one of the things you said was, well, number one, you don't want to dump it on somebody and have them feel like I'm just getting dumped on. And then there's the other side of it, which is maybe you're doing it to empower them, to grow them, to develop them. And so how do you do that well so that like you might be going into this thinking, hey, I'm trying to help grow this person, but they take it
Yeah,
as you're just dumping. So how do you reconcile that stuff?
yeah. It's really about where this person is, meeting them where they are in their career. So if you have someone that just came out of school or is fairly new to corporate, they're going to be younger, they're not going to have nearly as much experience, and they're going to need more hands-on approach to I'm delegating this and understanding and walking them through that, and more feedback. Where somebody that's more of a experienced or seasoned person, you might be able to just delegate them quite quickly to a responsibility given what you're expecting. And you might have to check in with them, not as frequently. So it really depends on the task. It depends on the person, the skill set, and what they're bringing to the table from existing experience level, and what the organization is looking for long-term on what this person is going to be doing, like career-wise. Is this like for a nurse, there's only so many skills that that person's going to develop unless they go into management. Whereas you have somebody that's a leader, you're developing this person to move up. That's going to be a different skill set. So it just really depends on the circumstances of the person, where they are in their career.
Okay, so let's maybe take a or kind of like a role play example. I'm thinking like, what questions should I be asking as I'm in the
Mhm.
delegation process? So like when you think through it, and you've got this person, manager at any level, right? That they've got something that they need help with. How does, like, what are some of those questions that they should be
Mhm.
asking this other person, either in the process or before they even get to it or afterwards? Like, what are some of the questions that a leader should be asking during this delegation process?
So first of all, I would definitely suggest doing a one-on-one with this person, not something that's in an email or text, or you just leave it on their desk with a sticky note. Like, it's something that's like, set up the meeting, be planned, explain what your expectations are for this, and then what the deadline is, but also explain the why. Why are we doing this project? What your impact is going to have, how when you bring this in, what the domino effect is if it's late. Helping them understand the why always helps have people buy in to their, whatever they're doing, helps them realize that it's important, that they're not disconnected from the big picture. Second is ask them, do you understand, what we're doing and what the end goal is here? And if they say yes or no, then, say great. And then say, I'm going to check in with you on, a day or two, and make sure you put that on your calendar to check in with them, and then check in and find out how their progress is. So depending on if they're saying yes or no, you're going to have to check in and see, are they really truly being honest with you, or are they just trying to see if they can, get through it, and you're going to find out that they need some more assistance.
So basically, assessing, do they understand what what
Yeah.
what you're what they're being asked to do, why you're asking them to do it, what's the impact of it? I think those are great questions to consider. I think the other, like, one that comes to my mind is, do they have time for this? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, you're overwhelmed, or maybe you're feeling like, I just can't do this. I need to have someone else do it. But it doesn't serve any good purpose if you're delegating to someone else who's already feeling the exact same way. So, one of the questions that comes to my mind is, first off, do you have time for this? Okay.
Yep.
And maybe they do, and maybe they don't. But the second follow-up question that I would ask is, show me the list of things that you do already have on your plate, and what do those priorities look like? Because if you're a manager,
Yeah.
maybe you have the prerogative to say, hey, those three things that you had on your list, those aren't as important as this thing,
Mhm.
right? Because I think that's, a lot of the folks that I work with, that's sometimes the question, right? Is like, well, okay, well, you've asked me to do two things. Okay. I
Yes.
can't do them at the same
Mhm.
time. So
Yeah.
is this one more important, or is this one more important? Does this one have a deadline? Does this not one have a deadline? So to your point, just having communication, one-on-one open dialogue, um, but setting expectations and priorities and deadlines, and
Yeah.
and also maybe kind of giving them the permission to not do something, right?
Yeah.
If,
And I
if
think that's
what you're,
why, I think that's why it's important to also have one-on-ones with your team weekly, if not bi-weekly. So you do have an understanding of what their workload is and you can appreciate where they're coming from. And if they say, hey, remember we talked about this project? Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that. Okay, maybe I give this to somebody else. And I appreciate you reminding me, but what you're saying is definitely a give and take. And that's where that relationship with the manager is so important, is that you're giving them the space to say no, and there's nothing wrong with saying no. And giving them the space, if they do take it on, if something goes wrong, that's not the end of the world. So that's where it's really crucial to recognize, if I give this to this person, is there going to be a detriment to the overall project if they don't do it on time or something goes wrong? Then maybe I need to own it. So it's making sure that we're setting them up for success, but giving them the opportunity. If they fail, it's not the end of the world. It's a great opportunity for them to learn.
that's awesome. Well, I know that I can sometimes be a sarcastic person. I've been accused of being sarcastic, or at least some people might say I have a dry sense of humor. But I like in our company, where we do bookkeeping and accounting and end of the years, and January is never the time for me to go to anybody on my team and ask them to do anything
Exactly.
extra, because I'm just going to get immediate, no, or hey, how about not this quarter? Maybe
Yeah,
April, May, June. Yes, we'd love to do
yeah,
this new thing that you've asked us to do, but so I think that also kind of goes back to one of the previous topics that we had discussed, is self-awareness, right? And team
yes,
awareness and seasonality awareness. Like, when's a good time to add something to somebody else's plate? Maybe when's a better time, right? So all those things are very important to be aware of and be mindful of as you're delegating. But so let's kind of go to the next step. So let's say I'm a manager, leader. I've delegated some very, very important work. I've assessed that it's the right time, right person, right everything, and I want to give this task to them. How do you then, after you've delegated, start providing feedback that's constructive and not
yeah,
considered, whether it's micromanage or just feel like you know um, not helpful to the process?
yeah. So that's when I would schedule, let them know at the very beginning, I'm going to schedule these days in advance to touch base on this project, and let them know that this isn't to micromanage you. This is to make sure that we're still on task and that we are on time for the deadline that we need to make. And I want us to get together and work through anything that's coming up so we can avoid delaying or any major hiccups that we're missing without meeting before that. So if you set the precedence before that, in no way is this to micromanage you, that I'm planning these days, this is something that you're going to be doing, and just give them that freedom between those 2 days or whatever those dates to do what they need to do, and let them know I am available if you need me. Definitely come see me if beforehand, but these are the dates. So this person understands ahead of time, because if you just drop by their desk and start asking questions, one, you don't know where they are, in the two, in the process, and two, it might look like you're micromanaging because they weren't anticipating you coming by and saying, hey, where are you on this right now? So it's just being really very clear, transparent on why you're doing what you're doing.
Well, I've been accused of doing that as well. So transparently, I've been accused of stopping by somebody's desk and saying, "Oh, hey, just where are you at on that?" And then, yeah, and then I get some looks, and or let me get back to you kind of responses. So I
Yeah,
get it. I mean, it's hard. It's hard not to, especially if you really care about something, and
yes,
really want an update. But I think, again, to your point, great advice. Set the expectation up front that, hey, I'm giving you this task now. I'm gonna check in with you in a week, or every
mhm,
Friday. Let's get together, so that they are planning for it mentally, emotionally, time
yep,
wise. They're planning for it. All of those things sound like really, really good pieces of advice. So I don't know if this is a different question or the same question, but it seems like one of the challenges that I see not necessarily on the delegator side, but on the person that's receiving this new work or task or project is, and a lot of folks just won't ask questions. You know,
Yeah.
they sit there in their chair, they don't know what they're doing, and they don't know what to do, and but for whatever reason, they just won't go ask a question. Have you experienced that before? And what's that all
Oh,
about?
yeah, yeah. So it's important to, if you're finding that they're not responding, is to ask open-ended questions. So if you're working on a project and you're assigning them, ask them something detailed about the project that they have to have read it or have some understanding. And if they're unable to answer that, then you can go into more detail of like, okay, this is what I'm looking for. This is why we're looking for what we're looking for. And so you can see if the light bulb is going to go on or not. And then maybe you need to reevaluate if this person is the right person for this project. If they have the deer in the headlights look and nothing is happening, like they are not understanding and they're not giving you yes or no, then that's telling you that they are not going to respond and probably are not going to be able to do the project. So that's when you have to really ask yourself, is this the right person for the project?
Yeah, and I've got to imagine the same is true. Like if you know there's some complexity here and they're not
Yeah,
asking any questions and you've given them a day or two and they're still not asking any questions. I mean, either they're great and amazing and they're just killing it,
yeah, yes,
or maybe there's something going on there. So
yeah.
I really truly liked just the whole concept you laid out at the beginning, which is setting expectations. And so like, hey, I expect you to have questions, right? I expect you to have questions. This is not an easy task. I thought, otherwise I wouldn't be giving it. I wouldn't be taking the time
Yeah,
to make sure that it's done well.
and
So
that's a good point too, is that sometimes we have to be the cheerleader for somebody to get them out of their comfort zone. So sometimes maybe this person has demonstrated in another way they could do it, but they're just not thinking they can. And maybe you need to bring it back to, hey, remember when you did that other project? And remember how you didn't feel like you could do it, but you knocked it out of the park? I think this is the same situation. So
yeah,
just being their cheerleader and helping them get out of their comfort zone and recognize, you know what? You can do this and I have confidence in you and I'm here for you. And if you have any questions, definitely come by, but I want to give you this chance. But if it doesn't work out, I get it, but I've seen what you can do and I think you can do this.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I think you and I both, we have some coaching experience, right? We have some, working with people experience. And
Yeah,
one of the one of the biggest challenges that I see that I've experienced, not only in myself, but in some of the folks that I've worked with, is the inability to let go, right? The inability to
yeah,
delegate without taking it back. Like, hey, here's this task, here's this
yeah,
project. Oh, it's not going fast enough. I'm going to take it back. You made this one mistake that I saw. I'm going to take it back. How do we
yeah.
keep that from happening?
It goes back to expectations. Like you have to literally tell yourself, I have to expect I'm going to react to this, but I need to surrender and give this person the space to be able to do it and give them clear instructions. This is what I'm expecting and a deadline. But you got to be very clear with yourself. Like if you're getting that itch, like I got to go check in, you have to stop yourself. That goes back to the self-regulation. Like I just have to find a way to let it go because at the end of the day, we are incapable of doing everything. And the only way that we can grow our team is give them the opportunities. And sometimes they're going to fail. But if we set them up for success and that we believe in them, that they're good at what they do, then more than likely they will they will succeed. But if you have the mentality of every time I give this person a project, I know it's going to be a disaster. Okay, well then that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Are you managing your own expectations of this person? Are you being fair of the evaluation of them? Are you just giving them nothing but the crappiest assignments to prove to yourself because you can't depend on them? Then you have to ask yourself as a manager, am I setting them up for failure or is this person really not capable of doing their job?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's a hard thing, right? Because I know
Yeah,
there's two personality types that seem to have a big problem with delegating, and one of those is control freaks.
Yep,
Like I have to be in control of this. I have problems letting go. Okay.
yep,
And then perfectionists, right? It has to be done perfectly, right? And
yes.
so I need to control it, and it has to be done perfectly. That's a bad recipe for delegating, it seems.
And managing,
Yeah.
because you have very unrealistic expectations, because more than likely you set the bar so high that there's very few people that are able to even reach the same level of expectations that you have. So you're going to be struggling with your team. You're going to be struggling with people that want to work with you, because they're going to feel like no matter what I do, I can't do it well enough for this person. So why should I try?
Yeah.
So that's when you have people that check out or they leave.
Yep. Well, and so, this is such an important topic, Teresa, because, for someone that's sitting there right now, maybe they are feeling overwhelmed. They've got so much on their plate. They're being asked to do more and more every single day. Not only the person on the team, but the leader on the team. Everybody, quite frankly, from my experience, tends to feel the same way about
Yeah,
being overwhelmed. Is if they don't solve this, they're creating a recurring problem. They're creating a
yeah,
toxic environment for
yeah,
themselves and others. And so, if someone is sitting there going, "This has to be done perfectly. And I have to control every aspect of it." Um, you mentioned self-fulfilling prophecy, but the outcome of that is going to be not only a broken relationship, right? A The project is not going to get done on time if you didn't have time to do it in the first place,
yeah.
right? And you're creating this situation where you just can never ever ever do it, right? You can never ever free yourself from this mountain of work. So as we kind of wrap up this episode, put yourself in the shoes of that leader who's having a problem doing this, right? Maybe they've tried delegating in the past and they've failed miserably, personally, like they just couldn't let go. What's maybe that one or two tips for someone that's really struggling with this? How do they get to the point where they can delegate? Like, what's a good strategy that they can apply?
That's a lot of self-reflection. And what am I fearful of? What is the worst thing that can happen if it's not done perfectly? What is the worst thing that happens if somebody doesn't get done with this? And more than likely, they're thinking it's a reflection on themselves. And that's where you have to recognize, as a manager, it's not always going to be perfect. It's managing your own expectations of your life and just taking a hard look at, am I being realistic on what I'm expecting of myself? Because that's the expectation I'm putting on others. And where those are barriers that are stopping somebody from being successful is these high unrealistic expectations as a manager is only going to be a detriment to the team and to them, because everyone's stressed out, everyone's overwhelmed. And that would be something I would suggest, just taking some time and asking, why do I feel like it has to be perfect? Why do I feel like, what is the root cause? And just keep asking why. And a lot of times you can get down to what, that might have been a situation that happened in the past, or something that was said to them in the past that has created this unrealistic expectation in their mind that they need to change and reframe it to where it's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. And what does perfect look like? I mean, am I being realistic about what perfect even looks like?
Yeah, I love it when you talked about identifying what's the worst that could happen. What am I afraid of? Right. I
Mhm.
think that's a great question to ask and self-reflection to ask. Um, it seems to me the another thing that could be done too, just from a communication one-on-one communication strategy, is to be transparent with this person, especially if you've had challenges delegating in the past, is to say, hey, I've got this thing I really need help on. I would love to be able to give it to you. It's going to, really grow the capabilities of our team. But here's what I have a tendency to do. I have a tendency to give tasks and then they don't happen quickly enough where
Yeah,
I see the mistake. And so I tend to take them back. And so having that conversation at the very, very beginning to be able to say, look, what's likely to happen is a week from now, I'm going to be asking you because I'm going to be like, Is it getting done? Is it
Yeah,
getting done? Is it getting done? Because
yeah.
that's my control. That's my need for control. And giving that person permission to say, you said this was going to happen. This is where you need to trust, and go back to your office. I got this, right? But just having that conversation so that you anticipate what's going to happen, which is I'm going to
Yeah,
probably ask you and be nervous about it getting done. That's just me talking. That's not you and my lack
yeah.
of trust or any of that kind of stuff.
Well, it's open. It also, I would hope that the person's manager would recognize that this is a perpetual problem and that they're working with them and helping them recognize like, okay, for this next project, I want you to give this to so-and-so. And I want you to give them clear instructions because we're going to work through this so I can give you more responsibility, but I can't give you any more because you're not delegating. So it's helping them see the big picture as how they're not giving up their responsibilities to those that should be taking it, that it's hindering their own success and their own ability to
Yeah.
take on what they should be owning.
What's so great about this, is the point you just made, which is, I can't go higher in an organization if I'm not constantly giving stuff to other people that I'm currently doing,
Yeah,
to other people and helping grow them to be able to take that stuff on so that I can take on the next thing that I need to do at that increasingly higher level. And so it needs to be a constant thing throughout the entire organization, focusing on empowering your team, delegating appropriately, and delegating so that you can continue taking on increasing responsibilities for yourself. Okay, like I always say,
exactly.
kind of putting yourself out of a job, but that's so that you can take on the next job, with whatever level of seniority is there. So, Theresa, this has been fascinating. As always, I really appreciate having you on the episode today. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you and learn more
Yeah.
about some of the help that you provide, how do they do that?
Yeah, anyone that's listening today, if you want to reach out to me, I do give one free session for leadership coaching. I can be reached on my phone. It's 972-849-3061. And my email is admin@Theresa Chilcoat, and that's THERESA. And Chilcoat is spelled CHILCOAT.com.
Fantastic. And you did mention before that you've got this a book that's on the horizon. And so
Yes.
once that book comes out, how do they get a hold of that thing?
I will be definitely putting out a social media blast. Yeah, it'll be the how to survive a toxic workplace, and it's going to be 4 steps on how to find your empowerment while still working in the environment. Very excited, and I'm hoping like in the next 3 to 4 months that once we get finished with the editing and all that, we'll get it published.
That's awesome. Well, I know writing books is a labor of love, and so
Sure is.
a lot of the folks that I know that write books, it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So I applaud you for doing it in the first place, and then getting it finished is a whole nother thing. So
Yes, it is.
congratulations on that once it does come out.
Thank you.
For everybody that's been listening and subscribing to the show, hope you got a lot out of this episode. For those of you that need help delegating, I hope this was really, really helpful. And for those of you that are delegating, hopefully you learned a few strategies to do it more effectively. So thanks again, Theresa, for coming on the show. And for everybody that's listening, we'll see you again in another week.
Yeah, thank you, Brad.
There is a Solution for That is produced by VARC Solutions. This episode was produced by Ashley White and Aaron Riley. You can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Watch the video version on youtube.com/there'sasolutionforthat. Or visit varcsolutions.com/podcast, where you'll find our entire podcast archive, as well as show notes, links to solution providers, and complete transcripts of every episode. If you love the podcast, please leave a review with your comments.